Many things that promise happiness are brand new. This one is nearly 85 years old. Since 1938, the Harvard Study of Adult Development has followed more than 1,300 volunteers to determine what makes people flourish. It is the longest study ever done on human life. In a new book, the researchers concluded that deep relationships led to a long life of happiness and health. But that might be easier said than done. For more on this, I am joined by the co-author and associate director of the study, Mark Schultz. Mark, let's start with explaining just how far back this goes and where the conclusion came from that good relationships are the key to happiness.
Sure. This is really a remarkable study that began, as you suggested, in the 1930s on the eve of World War II, and it followed 724 individuals through their entire life. And these were folks from very different ends of the social spectrum. About 2/3 of the folks lived in the poorest neighborhoods of Boston. They were young adolescents, and about a third lived just down the block. They were Harvard University students, but had a very different sort of prospect on life. And from young adulthood, late adolescence, we studied them all the way through to the end of their life with questionnaires, with interviews, more recently with brain scans and modern techniques to understand their bodies and physiology. So we've really followed them very closely throughout their lives.
And you note one of the things that's interesting is in the article where you discussed your book in The Atlantic, you said that some people participating in this study would skip some of the difficult questions. Give us a sense of what the difficult questions are, and what did their skipping of those questions tell you?
Yeah, so we asked them hundreds of questions literally across their lifetime. And some of the questions were hard. We asked them about their biggest fears in life. We asked them about things that they regretted or weren't proud of in their lives. And some people did choose to skip questionnaires, but we always followed up with interviews. So this is a study that's followed people very closely across time. And we take advantage of interviews to get answers to some of those questions that people may be more reluctant to answer when they're asked in a questionnaire. So, that tells us something when people don't answer those questions, and we follow up when we have the chance to meet them in person.
And so, Mark, now to the key finding, which is about personal relationships. You say that those relationships must be nurtured. How do you do that? And what does it mean to nurture a relationship? I mean, does it mean calling on the phone every day? Help us understand in real terms, for those of us who may want to try to nurture these ourselves, what that means.
I think the first step is really sort of taking stock of your connections to others, thinking about the relationships that are working well, and moving forward with intention to make sure that you're spending time with those people that give you energy, that you feel a sense of connection with. We want to maximize those good connections that we have. And then we also want to think about relationships that maybe aren't working as well for us and thinking about ways that we can reconnect. So what we find is that people often neglect their relationships. They take them for granted. And over time, those relationships wither. So just like physical fitness, we need to lean in with intention, making those kind of commitments to see a person, to reach out with a phone call or a regular occasion to talk, really critical to maintain relationships. That's what helps them thrive over time.
Dan Pink, in his book on regrets, talks about relationship regrets as one of the categories. And he says, and did you find this in your work, that even if you haven't spent 20 years talking to a sibling or a friend who you had a falling out with, that a drop of retouching with them sort of fills up the years. Is that right? In terms of rebuilding these connections that you say are necessary for a good life?
Well, I think one thing that's really critical is when we ask people at the end of their life about their regrets, almost to a person, people talked about relationships that had withered, that they had lost, that they wish they had leaned into them more. And what we find by following people across 85 years of their adult life is that people can change those connections. For many people, it happens by luck. Some people, it's by intention. But people change their connections in meaningful ways. So one important, I think, finding from the study is this idea that it's never too late, that we can really change things. And little connections like the one you're describing from Dan Pink really make a big difference in how relationships can play out.
Well, we probably, all of us, have someone like that in our life. So your message is pick up the phone.
Pick up the phone. You can start with a text, but having that connection, at least a voice connection, really important. But make that time. Someone that you haven't been connecting with lately, make that commitment. Let them know how important they are.
Mark Schultz, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, John.